325,600 minutes. That is how long it takes to celebrate the gays. Pride Month is finally over, folks, and summer has officially begun, which means until next year, we can lower our rainbow flags, raise our Bud Light beer mugs, and kick off the grilling season by slapping our meat between pairs of delicious hot white buns. In a strictly non-gay way, of course. You know, I'm as happy as the next guy that Pride is over, but according to statistics, there are now 1 million people living in Canada who identify as LGBTQIA+. I mean, mostly because the housing market is so f***ed that gay men can no longer afford houses with closets big enough to hide in, but that's besides the point. The point is that the queer community is growing, so I think it's important that we take the time to reflect on the events of the past 4 weeks so we can establish what we've learned. You know, so that we can be better allies. So this week, we will be rounding up my top 5 lessons to take away from Pride 2023. Number 1, the MeToo movement does not apply to homosexuals. Listen, I'm from Southern Ontario, Canada, okay, where we host one of the largest pride parades in the world every year. And I can confidently tell you from experience that the things that go down at this event would make the citizens of Sodom blush. Here's your average pride display. A dude in BDSM garb being spanked by another dude in broad daylight with children present. How could the same people who championed the Me Too movement only a few years ago also let this kind of stuff happen? Louis C.K. got canceled for consensually masturbating in front of adult females in the privacy of his own bedroom, while these motherfuckers are having a BDSM party in the middle of the street in front of kids. Apparently, if you're a straight white male, you get canceled for what you do in your own bedroom, but if you're a homosexual, you get cheered on and celebrated for bringing your bedroom to the streets. To which people will often say, well, if you don't like it, don't bring your child to a pride event. Pride events aren't made for children anyway. Okay, I guess schools aren't made for children either. I guess that's become just another funhouse for men with weak morals and low inhibitions to act out their favorite schoolgirl fantasy.
I will never apologize for standing up for an LGBTQ2+ kids' rights.
But not even shielding our children from daycare schools, community centers, and the general public will save them. Because according to a new California bill, parents who don't affirm their child's transgenderism will be charged with child abuse. An updated bill in California has introduced the inclusion of affirming a child's sexual transition as a requirement for parental responsibility and child welfare. This means that failing to affirm transgenderism for a child would be considered abusive according to the proposed California State Family Code. Imagine traveling back to the 90s and telling your past self that one day you'll be charged with child abuse for refusing to cut your son's off.
LGBTQ2+ kids' rights.
Number 2. LGBTQIA+ allies have no idea what they're supporting. Sexual lifestyles that deviate from the norm aren't just damaging to your relationship with your father. They can also be quite damaging to your health. Something our loving and tolerant educators don't tell our children when they're promoting homosexuality to them at every turn is that regular anal sex can and often does lead to permanent damage. So much so that in the pre-HIV era, healthcare workers referred to those damaging results as gay bowel syndrome. According to the first-hand account of the realities of anal sex from a gay man, in the pre-HIV era, the various gastrointestinal and rectal maladies in male homosexuals seen by physicians and proctologists were collectively referred to as gay bowel syndrome. I experienced this firsthand, as the constant ritual of anal cleansing, douching, enemas, and penetration caused the already naturally dry and thin-skinned rectum to become perpetually red, irritated, and swollen. Diarrhea was a relentless affliction. Some rather active gay men who otherwise were beautifully muscular and apparently healthy-looking took to wearing diapers, especially during intense workouts or weightlifting sessions at the gym, as the increased pressure often caused abnormal leakage. Ugh. That's what I call a hate crime. Which brings me to lesson number 3. Most gay hate crimes you hear about in the news didn't actually happen. Now, before you get your panties in a bunch, allow me to explain. Every year, Pride Month comes chock full of new and inventive hate crimes against our favorite oppressed group. But with the growing societal acceptance and normalization of the alphabet crew, the media is finding it more and more difficult to really land those top-tier hate crime stories. So instead, we have this. Tire marks cleaned off rainbow crosswalk in Waterloo. A pressure washer has been used to clean tire marks off a rainbow crosswalk on Willis Way in Waterloo. The city tweeted a photo of city workers cleaning up the marks, which the city said was an act of vandalism. Wow. A whole article about road shit happening on the road. This reminds me of the girl who has sex on the first date and then acts surprised when she doesn't get that "Good morning, beautiful" text in the morning. If you're gonna sign up to be walked on, don't be surprised when you get a little roughed up. I mean, painting a pride flag on a road is like printing it on toilet paper. It's gonna end up covered in skid marks, and who's to say this was inspired by hate anyway? Maybe the dude driving slammed on his brakes to avoid hitting a gay, neurodivergent, non-binary, anti-racist Canadian moose. You ever think about that, CBC? Of course not. Because you only think about yourself. And if it isn't skid marks on the sidewalk, it's Muslim children stomping on pride flags. Protests against quote-unquote gender ideology in Canada's capital city Friday brought far-right conservative Christians and Muslims together to attack Ottawa's local school board for supporting LGBTQ+ students. A new directive by the Ottawa Carleton District School Board inspired the demonstration, organized by notorious far-right Canadian provocateur Chris Elston, aka Billboard Chris. The all-staff notice advised the use of they-them pronouns for students until their preferred pronouns were expressed. In 2020, Elston, a Vancouver insurance agent, paid for a billboard declaring "I love J.K. Rowling," and then wore the message on a sandwich board at protests after it was denounced as hateful expression and taken down. According to the Love is Love people, loving J.K. Rowling is a form of hate expression. Which brings me to lesson number 4. The LGBTQ love and accept all people, as long as those people do and say exactly what they're told. An Edmonton teacher was secretly recorded scolding Muslim students for skipping school during Pride.
Well, I'll tell you, you are out to lunch. If you think it's acceptable to not show up because you think that there's some pride activities going on at school, right? Oh, that's fine. You know, because I'm going to show my opinion by hanging out at the mall. But meanwhile, all of those kids who are, you know, involved in, say, the Gay Straight Alliance or whatever, I don't even know if we have that anymore in our school, they're here when we did Ramadan for Lion Time. And they're showing respect in the class for your religion, right? For your beliefs. It goes 2 ways. If you want to be respected for who you are, if you don't want to suffer prejudice for your religion, your color of skin, your whatever, then you better give it back to people who are different from you. That's how it works. It's an exchange. And it isn't like that in all countries. As I told you, in Uganda, literally, if they think you're gay, they will execute you. If you believe that kind of thing, then you don't belong here. Because that is not what Canada believes. We believe in freedom. We believe that people can marry whomever they want. That is in the law. And if you don't think that should be the law, you can't be Canadian. You don't belong here, and I mean it.
Did she just say Muslims have no place in the Western world? She really made MAGA proud with that one. You know, I find it odd that liberals who so strongly support immigration from the most conservative countries in the world suddenly clutch their pearls when those immigrants act as though they're from the most conservative countries in the world. Seems like they're getting a little closer to understanding why people so strongly oppose immigration. It's not because they're inherently racist, it's because they know it will dilute their culture until it's non-existent. Wow, you gays, man, we're all learning something. Which takes us to the fifth and final lesson. The nation that embraces homosexuality will be destroyed. In the 1930s, British anthropologist J.D. Unwin studied 86 cultures that stretched across 5,000 years. He found, without exception, when they restricted sex to marriage, they thrive. But prominent gay philosopher and darling of the left, Michel Foucault, strongly disagreed. Foucault describes sexual sciences as a contributing factor in the stigmatization of homosexuals and a means of controlling populations. According to him, it is the concept of population that emerged in 19th century Western Europe that led to a state regulation of people's sexuality. Although the Christian religion condemned pleasurable sex as a sin well before that period, it is the birth of the concept of population that gave it a new controlling dimension. For instance, in 1950s pro-natalist Germany, experts urged the state to maintain existing laws against homosexuality in order to boost birth rates. The concept of population both enabled and provoked the control of people's sexuality in order to serve economic and political ends. That's interesting. If what he says is true, that the purpose of promoting heterosexuality is to boost birth rates, it really leaves me wondering what the purpose of this is.
Here we go! Happy Friday! It's in the air, I see my blood is rushing.
If it's what my gut tells me, I would say the purpose is to decrease birth rates among white Europeans so that they can be replaced by agreeable foreigners who vote for whoever's doling out the free money. A theory one might call the Great Replacement, a theory that the government and media promises is a white supremacist conspiracy theory. But if it is indeed a conspiracy theory, why is it that Westerners were morally bludgeoned into having less children over the past decade or so under the guise of saving the planet from overpopulation, only to now learn that our birth rates are so low we have to open our doors to 500,000 immigrants per year to keep the economy going? I'm sure it's nothing more than the great big oopsie theory. I'd like to hear what Foucault has to say about all this and what he thinks of our current society, but he died prematurely at the age of 58 of AIDS. Alright guys, that's it for me today. If you like this video, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and check out some other videos from my channel. I will see you all next week for the next weekly roundup. Bye!
About pooping on his wee-wee because how to properly finger your butt. Remember to close your eyes when he comes on your face. If his ding-dong is too big and it hurts your butt, don't worry, getting molested as a kid made me the opposite of a whore, which is how to trim your testicles. Your nuts. Let's rank different types of underwear that gay bottoms wear. I got chlamydia in my throat from someone's pre-cum a few years ago, which how to not choke and barf when you swallow his nut. Try not to cut yourself if you're sad. Getting head at 6 years old from a male pedophile definitely sucks.